And that's where if we're going to have, a robust remote work offering where somebody can work for a company around the other side of the country but still reside and enjoy West Michigan, we have to make sure we have that ability for them to do that. So that's really where I see that particular challenge is more on the homeowner side or the individual side, not as much on the business side.
And my second question ties to some of the comments you've made about housing. Big surprise I'm talking about housing. But, I thinking about my colleagues' comments about how do we compete in an environment where you can move anywhere now? And I got to imagine, just like it's easiest to retain businesses that started here and we've helped grow here, it's also easiest to retain workers and talent that grew up here, that have roots here, but unfortunately are getting priced out of the market for their home, for their starter home or for whatever kind of living situation they're looking for. And while you've mentioned that the right place is not as tied to that, can you speak a little more about how those two aspects of the world should be intersecting more? I know that the right place has talked about countywide housing strategy as one of the main initiatives that could really transform this community. Could you speak a little bit to that, and also what we're seeing such a strategy playing out, and or what you would expect such a strategy to have to be successful?
So there's a lot in that question. I'll try to take a couple elements of it. I touched on it earlier. I think right now we're seeing a housing shortage that frankly, as I moved back to this market from one of the hottest housing markets in the country in Denver to moving here, I didn't expect to find the housing market quite the way it was. So that was a bit of a shock coming in. Strangely and thankfully, we're not alone right now in this housing dynamic. So it's not like somebody who can't find a house here is able to then go buy a house in Chicago or buy a house somewhere down the road. That's just not. It's sort of a national, universal housing crunch, if you will. So that means the first communities, the first places that can really solve for that are going to have a unique competitive advantage. One of the things that I think we have to hone in on, and it's something that I worked on when I was in Denver, is there's been an abundance of rental that's been able to be brought to market, and it serves a great function, and it's solved a good deal of the challenge. But at some point, as we're seeing, millennials want to own. They want to advance their lives just like so many of us have. And part of that includes owning a house and owning a little bit of a lawn and letting their kids run around or what have you. And that's, as I said before, near impossible right now. The competitive situation for entry-level houses, those first-time home buyers, is extraordinarily tight. And so finding ways to get ownership opportunities at that price point, to me, is mission critical if we're going to retain the young talent that you're referencing.
And if I can follow up, I almost imagine, because we've talked a lot about the need for an increase in supply, and I don't deny that in the slightest, and we absolutely have to take a growth mindset. But there is part of me that wonders that as we are becoming such an attractive region, that a supply-only approach is just not going to cut it, especially when it comes to getting to that price point, simply because we're always going to be catching up. And given how we've talked about how critical certain infrastructure pieces, from utilities to broadband to this mission, I almost wonder if while not an infrastructure piece in itself, a similar investment mindset must be taken when it comes to incentivizing and supporting housing that just is not the housing at price points that's just not going to be achieved by reaching a new market equilibrium.
That ties back to our site readiness discussion. As I said, our focus is on those job-generating sites that we're short of right now, but the same is true on housing. And many of the housing lots, we all drive the county and we imagine, well, this site could be housing or this site could be business development, but it's not. And the reason why is you get underground and you realize the pipes aren't there, the power's not there, the broadband's not there. So finding ways to buy down that infrastructure cost to make it more achievable. And I think we've got to have a serious talk about density and think back to how we built communities 50, 60 years ago coming out of World War II was a much more dense environment, and we all lived perfectly happy lives. And today we're looking for bigger lots for new construction, which just by definition means more land costs. That means more house costs. So we've got to find a way to get higher density to lower costs for everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Chair. I know there's some shovel-ready sites at 36th and 131, and I do believe there's some activity that's going to be happening there in the manufacturing side. Can you talk a little bit about that? I thought that relationship with the right place, the city of Wyoming, and that developer was unique and I guess quite forward-thinking. So can you kind of let us know what may
Yeah,
be
thank
happening?
you. So, I mean, Site 36, the former GM site in Wyoming, it certainly had an interesting evolution over the last 10 or so years. I think it's a good lesson that sometimes it is just timing. Sometimes you launch a project like that with the best of intentions, thinking that we can find a solution and a user for that space, but the timing just wasn't right. And so over the last couple of years, the timing has started to shift as the vacancy, industrial vacancy across the region has continued to ratchet down. Some of those sites that maybe have had a little bit more of a challenge have become more appealing. That site in particular has a lot of infrastructure capability. It's right in the heart of an incredible labor pool, easily accessible via the freeway and 36. So it has a lot of unique real estate advantages. But now the market had kind of gotten to the point where it was ready to absorb and take on that site. We worked very closely with Curtis and his team at Wyoming to get comfortable with a working relationship with the developer. So I think there are times when publicly held property is the right move and the right play, and there's others when other times it needs to be in the hands of private developers who are, their whole mission in life is to find ways to execute on that, and I think we found the right partnership there. Yeah. But it's a function of timing. My predecessor, Birgit Close, did a lot of great work over her time. No question she put her heart and soul into Site 36, and I think it's one of those things where she could have done anything possible she would have, but the timing just wasn't there and it wasn't right, and I think sometimes you get lucky and the timing is right, so we're able to pull that together.
Just one other stat. I had a builder stat sent to me. There were 27.1 million homes built between 2000 and 2010, and from 2010 to 2020, 5.8 million. So that's part of our problem as well. So again, I know that's a big issue, and I know.
And at the same time, we built fewer houses. The number of people per housing unit has declined. So it's just a math problem where you're dividing by a smaller number. You need more units, and it's created this really an untenable housing situation, frankly.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. Randy, I'll try to be brief because I know we're trying to get moving on with the meeting, but you mentioned the density challenges, and in my district and in my neighborhood in Plainfield Township, those post-war neighborhoods comprise a lot of the Northview area. That's a density that's been phased out by the township. You can't build that density anymore. It's legacy. And so, I guess my bigger question is, how do you work through the patchwork of all that throughout our community when, state law gives the zoning authority to the local governments, and I think that's a good thing, but, how do you address that challenge?
Yeah, and as I said earlier, housing is not one that we take on directly. There's some other great efforts out in the community, but we can, from a jobs perspective, talk about the restrictor on growth if we don't resolve this. It's really difficult to try to find a company that has a big growth opportunity to make the case that they can do that here if we don't have housing for their folks at all levels. I mean, we have CEOs, we have doctors, we have top leaders moving into our community that struggle to find a house. So it is at every element of that spectrum. And so I guess part of it is our message on growth and how do we make sure if we're going to continue to grow, our community's got to take a look at it a little bit differently. I would argue personally, many of us grew up in those kind of housing neighborhoods and I thought lived a perfectly wonderful lifestyle. I sometimes question why we've walked away from some of those density. I think our ancestors were pretty smart. You divide the infrastructure up by more units, you divide the land up by more units, you put a park well located that we can all enjoy together. There's a lot of smart community building, placemaking that went into that we moved away from. So I would argue we might need to go back and revisit it.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, well, good. Thank you so much, Randy and Tim, for being here this morning. We clearly have a long-standing and deep relationship with the right place, and we look forward to tackling some of those challenges that you described for us. So.
Thank you. Challenges and opportunities. We have our chance to turn these into positives, so let's make that happen. Thank you.
Great, thank you again. All right, next item is public comment. Before we do that, just a heads up from my colleagues, we are now streaming and recording, so if you have to check your hair, go ahead and do that. So we're online. No, some of us can't be helped there, Commissioner. All right, public comment. If anyone is here from the public that wishes to address the Commission on matters that are on our agenda. You may do so at this time. Please identify yourself by your name and address, and then you have up to 3 minutes. All right. I see no one stepping forward, so we'll move to the next item, which is the consent agenda, and I call on Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I move the consent agenda of today's date.
Is there- Supported by Commissioner Jones. Discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Breve.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal. Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 8. We have a few resolutions on the agenda for today, so we'll try to move through these expeditiously. First of all, I'll call on Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 421-22-46, appointments to various boards, forward.
Support.
It was supported by Commissioner Ponstein, if I'm recognizing my voices correctly. Discussion on this motion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 46, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Breve.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 46 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8B, and I'll call on Commissioner Teal.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I move resolution number 47 of today's date, appointments to various commissions and committees.
Support.
Supported by Vice Chair Breve. Discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 47, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Breve.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 47 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8C, and I will call on Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Resolution 48 of today's date, use of federal coronavirus relief funding for the Sheriff's Department.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Jones. Discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 48, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Breve.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 48 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8D, and I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move adoption of Resolution 49 of today's date. It is to approve the use of federal coronavirus relief funding from the general fund. It comes to us from the admin's office.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Thank you. Discussion. Commissioner Ponstein?
Thank you, Chair Steck. So not so much discussion, but just clarification. So this proposal with the forgiveness of the food service licensing fee waiver for another year, was it before us earlier in the year, and then we had a press release saying that we did it, and now we're coming through and I guess approving it a second time. Well, how does this process work, and is it now for real, and what we did before wasn't for real?
Fair question. I think it takes 3 times to make it real. but I'll call on our administrator. to comment.
Actually, the last time that you approved it of the 3, so the second time was before the final rules were put out by the feds. So since those rules are out, it is recommended that we readopt that to make sure we're in full compliance with the act.
Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question on the second one, the transfer for the Organizational Improvement and Employee Wellbeing and Development Program, which I think is wonderful. I'm just wondering, is that 1 year's worth of money? Is that establishing it? Will we be looking for more in the future? I'm just wondering if we can speak to where we go from here.
Will you answer that?
Yes, absolutely. So I discussed kind of the 6C Organizational Improvement Initiative that we plan to present to the board with executive 2 days ago. And that will cover customer service, communication, cultural intelligence, competency, creativity, and collaboration. So it'll be kind of a 6-pillar effort towards taking Kent County to the next level to meet kind of the complex, fast-moving challenges that our county and our people in our county are going to face. I think the $1 million is not going to be the cost of the full thing. And so we're fleshing that out. We're getting to start with some of those pieces. But no, I don't think this will completely cover the full amount.
Thank you. I think it's a wonderful initiative. I'm super excited about it. Just want to know where we're going. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 49er, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein. Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy. LeGrand.
Yes.
Volkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 49er is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8E, and I will call on Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 50 of today's date, the grant of easement to the airport from the Administrator's Office.
Support.
Supported by Vice Chair Brevy. Discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 50, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein. Burl. Coleman. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod. Hennessy. LeGrand. Volkowski. Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 50 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8F, and I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move adoption of Resolution 51 of today's date. It is to approve a grant of maintenance easement to Consumers Energy. It comes to us from the Department of Public Works.
And it is supported by
Support.
Vice Chair Brevy. Discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 51, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein. Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy. LeGrand. Volkowski. Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 51 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8G, and I'll again call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move adoption of Resolution 52 of today's date. It is to grant a Consumers Energy Company easement request. It comes to us from Facilities Management.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Jones. Discussion? I'm assuming that all of my commissioners read the legal descriptions attached to these. All right. If we have time, we'll get back to that. Yeah. Madam Clerk, will you please do the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 52, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod. Hennessy. LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 52 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8H, and I will call on Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 53 of today's date, partial release of sewer line easement from the corporate counsel's office.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Womack. Any discussion? Not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 53, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 53 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8I, and I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move adoption of Resolution 54 of today's date. It is to approve Five Lakes maintenance. It comes to us from our Drain Commissioner.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Jones. Discussion. Commissioner Bulkowski.
I just want to note that, and a note of thank you to Corporate Counsel and Drain Commissioner for adding the last whereas into this and the next motion at Finance. We just wanted to make sure that it was noted who is paying for this, and it is that special assessment district that goes with the drain. And of course, the Drain Commissioner pointed out that what we were presented on Tuesday was the standard for many, many years, and for whatever reason, it caught my attention that we weren't clear. And so now it clearly states state law that the folks in that district will be assessed the cost. So
Thank you.
thank you for that change.
Any other comments or discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 54, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand. Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 54 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8J, and I will call on Commissioner Morgan.
Slow down a little bit, let the clerk catch your breath here a little bit. So fabulous roll taker, I'll tell you.
Just put my hair back. I mean business now.
All right, well, I'm just gonna mosey along here.
We're almost halfway through, so yeah, you got time.
Yeah, I gotta have halftime here. So, Resolution 55 is from the Drain Commission, and it's for Wabasis Lake maintenance.
Support.
Motion made, supported by Commissioner Jones. Discussions or comments? I guess we're okay with lake levels. Let's move on to a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 55, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Or Commissioners Teal, sorry, Commissioner Teal. Commissioner Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yep.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 55 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8K, and I will again call on Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chair. This is from the Bureau of Equalization, and it's the 2022 Equalization Report.
Support.
It is supported by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion, comments? Commissioner Volkowski.
Taking a lead from Commissioner Morgan to slow us down slightly, I just want to point out our lead in that department who's here, and that all of these numbers is just a massive amount of work, and it is the foundation for the fairness of our property tax and those assessments. So thank you so much, Matt, and to your team. And again, it all rolls up, and it's every parcel and every piece and the fairness of that. So tons of work, tons of gratitude for just doing your work and in a very non-controversial and mathematical way.
Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
Just a quick comment. I appreciated just the review on the Headley, Matt, because every year I seem to have to be reminded of the Headley. Can you just go over that real quick? Give the clerk a little bit more of a break here.
Sure. So, yeah, obviously with all the discussion this morning on housing and the tremendous growth that we're going through, along with that growth comes the provisions of the Headley Amendment. So anytime the amount of growth exceeds the rate of inflation, the county's millage rates, indeed the millage rates for all the taxing authorities in Kent County, needs to be reduced to that rate of inflation. So while we achieve growth every year in our property tax base on the assessed value side, the millage rate, which is the other side of the property tax equation, is going to be reduced this year. And so our Headley reduction calculation this year is 0.9817. So last year, if we were to take our values and times them by 100%, we're only going to levy 98.1% of what we were able to last year on the millage rate side.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for your work on this. It's, like Commissioner Bulkowski stated, it's a lot of work.
Thank you, Matt. No one else? All right, good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you go ahead and take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 56, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 56 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8L. Commissioner Morgan, one more time.
Thanks. This is my last resolution of the morning, so it's my privilege to offer this up. It's from Fleet Fiscal Services, and it's the Fleet Services Replacement CIP project for additional funding.
Support.
It's supported by Commissioner Jones. Are there questions or comments? I do have one. What is the status of that project as far as actual construction and completion?
Well, we have Al Jano here, so why don't we let him give us an update?
Good morning, Al.
Good morning, thank you. Status of the construction will start Labor Day, about just after Labor Day. The actual construction, some site work might begin prior to that, and it's a little bit different than where we would have perhaps been with the project 2 years ago at this time with the construction industry, but we find it much more beneficial in the contractor's desire to do it, and it just makes sense because of supply chain challenges and delays to have product en route or even on site or at least warehoused and secured rather than delay once we commence the project. So it would commence and then complete rather than have any delays. So that's why.
And the projected completion date?
Projected completion date would be spring of 2023.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Coleman.
Just a quick comment and then a question. I admire Commissioner Morgan's accomplishments despite us not having a filibuster rule. And my question is I think it said there's like a 19% increase over like, what we thought the cost might be due to like scope, increases that we've added, and then also just like inflationary costs. I'm wondering if we know like how much of that 19% is scope increase versus just general cost increases.
Yes. Remember, the original project budget and the concept of this was put together in late 2019. We live in a substantially different economic world and in other ways also. But to your point, as far as what those costs are, I'm pleased to say that some of that is our selection to add 2 more bays than we originally envisioned into it, rather than underbuild now and in the near future, open definition of exactly what near might be, but near future needing to add 2 bays. So there's about $400,000 to do that. With that size of a building, then we would add building automation with regard to HVAC automated controls. That does give us a payback. The payback is between 5 and 10 years, depending on where prices go. So that's money well spent, and that's money we can capture and then continue to capture after that. The mobile heavy lift equipment, mobile hoists, for buses and the heavy vehicles, that's about 50,000, and then the remainder of 100-some thousand would be inflation, which would be expected.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes, just to remind Commissioner Gilmore, I think I'm in with my time requirements, right?
Well, you're running out, but
Well, I'm not as quick-witted as I used to be, so.
Fair enough.
It's hard for me to follow all this. But, like I mentioned in the Finance Committee, this has been on the drawing board for a long, long time. And it's just nice to see that we're able to do it now. And I think we first put it on 2007, 2008, so.
It was a fully, as I shared back in the Finance Committee, it was a fully funded project then, and it was, I think wisely so and responsibly so, pulled back by the board between the administrator at the time and the board to say, hey, we don't know where this recession is heading, so let's hold on to it. That and the Parks Office building were both fully funded and pulled back. It's needed and it's appreciated by a lot of people, and it will serve us very, very well.
anyone else? If not, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 57, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Bolter, Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Coleman, Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Teal,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand, Bulkowski,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 57 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8M, and I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move adoption of Resolution 58 of today's date. It is to amend the Weatherization Assistance Program funded through LIHEAP, amending its 2021 to 2022 budget. It comes to us from Kent County Community Action. Support.
It is supported by Commissioner Womack. Are there any comments or questions, discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 58, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Bolter, Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Coleman, Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Teal,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
LeGrand,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 58 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8N, and I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 59er of today's date, comes from Kent County Community Action. It's the acceptance of the Weatherization Deferral Reduction Program grant.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Morgan. Discussion, questions, comments? If not, Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 59er, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Vice Chair Breby.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 5-9 is adopted.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item 8O. Not sure we've made it to O before, but we did now. And I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski again.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 60 of today's date, the Michigan Public Health Institute Michigan Accreditation Readiness Mini Grant, the last and I do believe least amount resolution of today.
Support.
Thank you for the subnote. Commissioner Morgan, I think, supported that. Any questions or comments, discussion? None? All right. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 60, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Breby.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 60 is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work this morning. We'll move on to item 9, which is the second opportunity for public comment. If anyone wishes to address the commission on a matter within our jurisdiction, you may do so now. Please identify yourself by name and your address, and you have up to 3 minutes. And I see no one, so we will move to item 10, and I will ask our administrator to give the administrator's report.
Yes, I have a few items for you today. Strategic plan status, so we all met a few weeks ago and worked on developing our priorities for the next year, and we're very close to bringing that back to you for review and approval. We've taken some time to integrate that plan with the nomenclature of the 5-year plan, which of course ends at the end of 2023. And to some of Tim Mraz's comments earlier, we're also looking at potentially recommending a futuring process to involve the county and our stakeholders in creating that North Star out there in the future at some date to be determined that we can then work towards in our planning efforts. Also, we're very close to making a welcome plan hire. That's been a long time coming. Very close to naming a broadband consultant to help us kind of identify the problem in the county so we can get moving on taking care of what one of our largest gaps is, I think, to future prosperity and all kinds of other things by not having good broadband access throughout Kent County. We are looking forward to having right now, I think attendance is right around 350 for next week's State of the County event at Frederick Meyer Gardens, so we're certainly looking forward to that. One of the boards, a couple of the boards that I represent the county on, one is DGRI, and then they created a sub-board around the time that I started called Grand River Inc. And I've been part of the governance committee of that board to kind of help bring that to life. We just adopted bylaws, named officers, that type of thing. And that's a group that's going to focus intently on development along the Grand River, making connections in the city, but also DGRI did get the $55 million grant in state ARPA money that will also be focused on building the connection to Lowell. So certainly 55 million isn't the total amount of that initiative, but we're really glad to see such a great shot in the arm and a great chance to continue the Greenway effort. Let's see, budget process is already in full swing. We just had a deadline for new personnel requests last Friday. So Amy and I will be reviewing those with staff, and we also have, let's see, what else? We had the first meeting of our Sustainable Business Park group, kind of brought in all the stakeholders. As you know, we haven't had a a good understanding maybe or buy-in of all the stakeholders into what could be a phenomenal project. And so we had a great first meeting. We did some Disney storyboarding, got all the issues out on the table, looked at a draft charter that we plan to approve at the next meeting. Also, things even like rules of engagement for the group, just set it up as a good, solid process, I think, that will kind of work along the same pace as the engineering for the project. Some of the engineering needed to be done to actually answer some of the questions that some of the stakeholders have. So we think that this will be a really healthy process to get everyone together and to keep things moving in a positive direction. And that is it for today.
Thank you.
That's it? Oh, there's more.
No.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I have the staff. All right, let's move to the next item, which is reports. Again, we are trying a new process here by asking you to make at least a written report electronically. There's a form that is distributed out. I know that most of our email boxes have been barraged, and so it may be that you're missing those in there, but take a look at them, see if you can find them. I know that we got some of the reports put in this way, and there were more attendance than reports, so still open it up if there are any other reports in addition to that. Commissioner Jones.
So not only being the majority participant in the written report, I also have quite a bit verbally still. So in looking at the written report, one of the feedbacks I had that I'd like to see some improvement and advancement, which would be the option to take some pictures and put in pictures for this. Right now, you're allowed a limited number of words. Be nice to be able to grab a picture of a PowerPoint presentation and throw that in there, or even a picture of the agenda. I just think that this can go even further yet. I commend again Commissioner Burrow for coming up with the idea and getting it launched. I think it's a great way to have on record the additional things that we're doing other than these meetings and committee meetings. But with that, I actually have some additions. So one of the challenges with this is the cutoff doesn't hit one report that I have. So in 2 weeks, you're going to see a report, but it comments on something that's happening on April 30th. So that doesn't do you any good to read it in 2 weeks. So I'm going to have to give this one verbally. The Parks Foundation met, and we do have that April 30th Day of Action at Townsend Park. So grateful for Jenny, who is the events volunteer coordinator. What a valuable position we have to coordinate many, many individuals. We potentially have over 40, and we have room for more, but it'll be a great opportunity for those who don't necessarily have funding to contribute, but do want to contribute some time to make our parks better. That's one of the reasons I kind of launched the Day of Action. Also wanted to add that I got from Experience Grand Rapids an updated card rack. So if anyone needs cards when you're out at other meetings to let them know what's going on in our county. You have great little QR codes in here for Tap to Taste, Dine Out, Get Up and Go, Meyer Gardens, See and Save with the Cultural Pass. You can even send a free postcard telling friends and family what a great time you're having in Grand Rapids. So I'm going to leave these on the back for the county to use and for the commissioners to use. So just know that this stack will be back there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other reports? All right. If not, we'll take up that suggestion, and maybe we can embed videos as well.
Even better.
Better. With links, of course. All right. If not, we'll move to miscellaneous. Anyone have a miscellaneous item? Vice Chair Breedy.
Thank you, Chair Steck. First off, I wanted to mention there are several openings for committees and boards, throughout the county. And I know Lisa has included that in one of our weekly emails recently, so look for that. The airport board is one of them, and that application process will close on the 24th for that particular position. Other ones are still open. So share that with your community members, social media, email. We need important people. It's in important positions we need lots of people to fill. So great way to serve the community. The next item I have here is South Christian. They have a robotics team, and they are currently in Houston at the first robotics competition, and it's the world competition. And there's teams from all over the world, China, India, and then Caledonia, South Christian. So, thank you. Hopefully they do well.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. So we had 15 resolutions today, and all of us agreed 100% on all of them. So all the naysayers out there that government doesn't work, they don't get along, those 15 resolutions had a lot to do with the quality of life and the services that we provide. So county government is still one of the better forms of government. So I'll leave that at there. I just want to do two things that I've attended, and just last night I was at Home Repair Services. They were celebrating the retirement of Jeff Peel from Standard Lumber. He worked in that business for 38 years, the past 6 as the CEO. He's quite active in the successes of Home Repair Services, along with other groups like the Home Builders Association that helped create that entity. They impact the lives of low-income and people that need assistance from replacing roofs, raising the monies to do that, getting the volunteers together. The one thing that struck me is that someone had mentioned that they've been putting up these handicap ramps throughout our county for about 30 years. They average 3 or 4 a year, so that's 150-plus ramps that they put in that affected someone's life in a very meaningful way. So I just wanted to thank and congratulate Jeff Peel on his retirement and everything he's done, and then also highlight the just fantastic work that the Home Repair Services does with all their partners, and there's many of them. I know Jeff had mentioned when he was talking that he tells all of his employees, I think in a year you can at least volunteer twice to help those folks down there. So it's stuff like that that makes this community great. It's not always government, and I just wanted to show my appreciation for that organization and everything that Jeff had done. The other thing, on April 6th, the death of Clyde Sims. Probably some of you haven't heard of Clyde, people in the audience probably haven't either. I first met Clyde when I was on the Legislative Resource Committee, and we had an opening on the Network 180 board. And it was a time there where they try to get people that can get caught up running, I don't want to say handpick people onto the board, but preference on who might be a good fit. Clyde wasn't one of those that was mentioned of that. And at that time, I think Carol Hennessy was on this committee with me, is that there was something in Clyde that I saw that was a little bit different, that I think that would be an impact of not only on the Network 180 board, but on this community. And I think he delivered on that promise, and I thank Carol for getting me that second vote to get him on that board in the first place. But the thing that struck out, he was also a minister. You could hear in his voice the love that he had for people, the community, and those that were in dire need of help. He was always there to help people. He's one of the founding members of a group that was called Street Reach. And what Street Reach did, they didn't sit in an office to wait for people to come to them that had problems. They went out there in the evenings, in the rain, in the snow, and met these people firsthand that had problems with homelessness or addiction. A lot of them were veterans. Clyde was a disabled veteran. He lived a great story. He had a great story, and he wasn't afraid to tell people about that. And he was recognized by the Community Mental Health Association with a Go to Bat award for those efforts of advocacy and his just straightforwardness. I've never met a person like him. He gave the invocation for me on one opportunity, and we also paid it back with a proclamation from the county when I think he retired from preaching. I don't think he ever really did require preaching, but then former Commissioner Shivas and I attended that, and it was just remarkable. he was a remarkable individual if you knew him, and just my thoughts and prayers to his, not only his family, but everyone that he helped along the way, that they continue on the road to recovery. And I want to thank Clyde for everything he's done for this county and the people that lived here. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to do a shout out to a couple staff members, Cal Branks and his staff in purchasing. I've been working with them a long time, both here at the county and on the fire commission, various other opportunities, and I just think they're top notch. By the time we get these things, Commissioner Bolkowski touched on it briefly at the Finance Committee, but I mean, I have a lot of confidence in this department. And the other thing is our corporate counsel putting these leases together. I mean, I was kidding that it was like a 8-page, 25-page lease. You know, by the time it gets to us, just unanimous vote. So it's really nice to have staff members like this that are willing to work hard, and I appreciate their work.
Thank you. Commissioner Bolkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking of South Christian High, I want to invite you to the former South Christian High on May 12th, so the afternoon of our next meeting, the ribbon cutting for Disability Advocates of Kent County and thresholds for our new space. So you will get that hopefully via email soon, so 4 to 6 on May 12th. Speaking of home repair services, if you have a moment this Saturday morning, with Rotary and Home Repair, we're building a ramp in the fair city of Wyoming, so I'll send that address. But then also speaking of ramps, on May 12th is the event titled The Ramp That Dave's Hair Built. So it's every 6 year, Commissioner Morgan was the first contribution. So at the Rotary Club of Grand Rapids, the hair's coming off for a good cause. So you will get an opportunity to donate, and it will be donated, the hair and the dollars, to Rotary to help people literally around the world and locally for good things. So you'll get notice on that opportunity to contribute as well. So this Saturday, May 12th, a couple of things, and we'll keep you posted.
Sounds like a win-win.
Exactly. I get a free haircut.
All right, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say first, I appreciate the less follically challenged folks among us using their hair for good, so thank you, Commissioner. I did want to, just something that came up when we were, the Michigan Public Health Institute grant was something that it brought it to my mind, that it might be a good thing. You know, we here at the board have a pretty good idea of where the grant dollars that the county applies for go, and have a decent idea of that when we move these things. But I think it might be a good thing for us to consider in the interest of transparency and for the public, and not just specific to this grant, but it was what brought it up, that when we get those grants from outside agencies, and particularly ones that involve public dollars, tax dollars, it might be a good thing for us to try to post as much information about how that money is being spent on our website or wherever it can be accessible to the public, because I think that would be a really great thing for the public to know, not only in the interest of, as I said, transparency and you know, accessibility, but also I think a lot of these grant dollars get spent by our county staff in really meaningful ways, and I think that would be a good way to point people in that direction so they can see where those dollars are going. In many cases, they are their tax dollars that they don't pay us, they pay someone else, and then someone else pays us. So just something I'd like to maybe consider us discussing a little bit in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to you and Commissioner Coleman and others for calling that to our attention to make sure we pay attention to that issue. So, Commissioner Hennessy.
I have a couple of events. There is Safe, Clean Community Fun going on this weekend, Saturday at the John Ball, starting from the John Ball Zoo, and it is to clean up the west side. It's something that we do annually in all of the neighborhoods, and you know, come together and we all walk out to talk trash and pick it up as well. And the other thing that is on Thursday, May 5th, there'll be the annual Cinco de Mayo, and that will be 11:30 at the Grand Rapids Public Museum, and everyone is invited to that. As with a lot of these activities around Cesar Chavez, Cinco de Mayo, there's a lot of support for scholarships for students that is provided from this. So I'd encourage everybody to join me there.
You have my address on the west side for cleanup?
I'll come pick you up, 10 o'clock.
Touche. Anyone else? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. Last night I was driving on 28th Street and came to Division, and the police had the road closed. And as I got closer, it seemed weird, but as I got closer, I could see there was a man up on the train bridge right there, and the police were trying to talk him off of, leaping off of that bridge, I assume. And it just reminded me of the mental and behavioral health supports we have here in Kent County, and all those who work in a very tough and often thankless job. People on Network 180 board, LRE, and the people in those systems, private, public, and also pastors, priests, and even sometimes the police that really support our community at often people's worst moments. And I just wanted to publicly say thanks. I know especially these years, those are very challenging jobs, but they're very meaningful to our community, so thanks.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Just very briefly, I just want to at least take a moment and thank those on this dais and those in our county who have used their voices to lift up the Leogia family at this moment. I realize the investigation is ongoing, and there are likely many opinions on this dais of what could have happened or what may have happened or what shouldn't have happened. But I think one thing I think we can all agree on is that this incident, this tragedy, can be a moment of reflection for any government that runs public safety and law enforcement to ensure that we look at our own practices and policies and see how our policies and practices are already put in place that are different from what happened, but what also can be done to ensure it doesn't happen again. In the end, I think that is a responsibility people of all political ideologies and partisan identities can get around, that we can take the responsibility as public leaders to ensure that practices are changed so this does not happen again, and we don't have to lend our voices to lift up another family. And want to especially thank Commissioner Womack, who is no longer at this dais right now, but for the work he has done to support the family at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I have just a couple of items. First, to join in recognizing the lifetime of work from Clyde Sims. Those of us that have worked with him on boards were the beneficiaries, and part of that as has been the whole community. This has been, though, a tough couple of weeks for Network 180. Not only did Clyde pass away as one of our board members, but Nessa McCasey also passed away, another one of our board members. Also remember her for all of the work that she's done for behavioral health in this community. On a more upbeat note, welcome back, Kaylee. Good to see you join us again. We look forward to continuing to work with you. And thank you, Lisa, for all your incredible work stepping in. And so I'm looking at seeing we might need two in that position going forward. So. And then finally, we did send out a notice, I think it was a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, about addressing conflicts of interest around this board, suggesting that as you look at your agendas, if you identify a potential conflict of interest, to please give us an alert on that in advance so we can talk that out. Thank you to those. I've had several conversations with members since then addressing potential conflicts, talking them out. In most cases, they're not conflicts, and so we can move on. But I appreciate if you would continue to do that so we can kind of ease this up and solve those issues going forward. So with that, I will call on Commissioner McLeod for the best motion of the day.
Agreed. Thank you, Chair. I move to adjourn, subject to a call of the chair, to Thursday, May 12th, 2022 at 8:30 p.m. a.m.
Unanimous support. We are adjourned.